I'm gonna go now, rewind a little bit, and I'm gonna teach you a little more details on how to make this kite paper hot air balloon. This is a really unique, fun activity, but it can have a few tricky things, so I just wanna make sure you have what you need. And again, this is one of those activities that is intentionally a parent-child activity. Don't expect that your 5-year-old is gonna be able to just do this on their own. While there are some child-led and child-independent moments within the process, this whole activity is something that is intentionally you coming together and making something together. Because without your child, I doubt you would be making a paper mache hot air balloon, but without their adult, I doubt a child would be able to make this on their own. So it's one of those cool things that because you have each other, you get to make something special together, right? So there's gonna be moments that your child can really participate in, but absolutely also moments that you will probably just be assembling yourself, and then your child can enjoy it. And you can use it as a decoration or as a story prop or whatever you want, okay? So I'm going to flip back here and I'm going to just go through all of the steps here for your kite paper hot air balloons, all right? So as I mentioned, your main lesson day 1, you're gonna start. Now I'm gonna show you our kite paper here. So this is using this kite paper, it's the same paper as your window stars. I would really recommend actual kite paper instead of tissue paper because it's more sturdy. So sometimes you can get away with tissue paper for some other uses of kite paper, but I really recommend this is like a waxy paper. It needs to be thick enough to hold up. And some tips here. So the first part of this is going to be cutting this into strips. This is something that this is a great part where your children can really take part of this independently. They can rip, they can cut. It is up to you if you want to do certain shapes, and then it is also up to you which colors. I do recommend 2 full layers of kite paper, and what we did is the first layer is we used white. So we use white for our first whole layer, and then we used colors. Now, you can choose whatever colors you'd like, but the lighter colors do tend to show the colors through a little bit more. So if we were to do this again, I probably would choose the very light green and very light yellow. And I know if we did this again, Nathaniel would want to like design like hot air balloon designs, but it could be whatever you want. You can use any color you want. All right, so first part of the paper mache is either cut or rip your kite paper. Now we used an entire like pack of each color. So if you have one of these packs, expect that you would use all of the white for your 1 layer, and then like maybe half the green and half the yellow if you're doing 2 colors, or all of another color. So just keep in mind how much you'll use of 1 pack. Now, when it comes to kite paper mache, I have a little demonstration here. So here's my tip for setup, okay? I have a cup here, and there's a rock, just like a rock from outside, a normal rock. And this is just to weigh this down. And you have your balloon, and you're going to squeeze, and that it gives you your nice little setup so it doesn't fly away. So this is your little paper mache station. Now this of course can still get knocked into the air, but this is a great way to set up your station. Then you're gonna make your paper mache paste. It's a cup of flour, cup of water, whisk it until smooth, and then you're gonna gradually add 2 more cups of water while it's on the stove and simmering it, and it's gonna get nice and thick. Now keep whisking. Mine got really lumpy. It still worked even though it was lumpy, but to make a nice smooth paste, just whisk that first flour and water and then slowly add the remaining water. Make it a nice thick gooey paste. We of course also have some, I think back here, gluten-free paper mache as well. Now we also tried to do and people had no idea paper mache was flour and water. I just thought people used Mod Podge. We actually did try Mod Podge at first to see if it would work. It did not work. So here's my recommendation. Don't use Mod Podge. It doesn't work because paper mache, it's stiff, where Mod Podge is just a more flexible hold. So yes, paper mache is flour and water mixture. Be sure to actually make the real paper mache. Mod Podge will not work. Tried and failed. So I can guarantee that won't work. So use the paper mache instead of Mod Podge, okay? All right, so we have your station, and then you're gonna choose your colors, and then you're gonna just use an old paintbrush and cover this whole thing. You wanna coat it with the paper mache, paint the little paste, then stick it, and then paint over it. So you kind of want to sandwich the kite paper in the layers of the paste. So you do a layer, do your paper, do another layer, and then another layer again after that, and make sure that it's all coated. So lots of paste, lots of paper, and this amount will be plenty for at least one balloon, all right? So then that is going to dry all the way overnight, okay? So any questions on kind of your first day part? Here's your balloon, make your paste, get your kite paper, layer that in 2 full layers of paper with your paper mache, let that dry overnight, okay? Then the next day, here we have the assembly, okay? Who's ready? I'm gonna set this aside, and then I'm gonna take you step by step. I'm gonna grab our things here so we can see, okay? All right, so the little basket, you need one of these little egg cartons just cut out, and it's okay that this is, has little missing pieces here because you'll cover it with your twine. So you just need one little cutout egg carton thing. You're gonna need your twine and my favorite blunt end needle. However, you will also need something sharp to poke some holes through the egg carton. So I have a seam ripper here. You could also use a sharp needle, something like that. I have some wire. You'll need some wire for the top piece, and I'll tell you a little bit about the wire when we get to that point. Okay, and then at the end, you'll need a little tea light, okay? So here we go. We're going to go step by step now. So I'm gonna have this open, and I'm gonna go and explain step by step. So as you go back to your book, you can remember kind of what we did. So step 1, you have your single egg carton. Then you're going to thread this long, and look how long this is, this long piece of twine, because this is going to be what's wrapping all the way around. So you can even do a test wrap to make sure you have enough twine to cover the whole thing before you cut it. Knot at one end and thread your needle on the other end, and just leave this out. You don't need to tie this on because you want to be able to remove the needle, okay? Then you're gonna come from the inside to the outside. So I've poked a little hole here, boop, and this is gonna be, I like to start, and when you do cut out your egg carton here, it's nice to have this little bit of lip overhang because it kind of helps keep the twine in place, okay? So we're gonna go from the inside to the outside, see? Inside to the outside, boop, and then we're gonna go through, and then we're going to pull this all the way through, all the way through. Nice long piece of twine. You get to see me do this in real time. All right, okay, there we go. Voila. Okay, so we have our knot on the inside. Then, easy part, step 2, wind the egg carton. Okay, we're gonna start at the top. That little lip comes in handy. Thanks for bearing with me, friends. And then we're just gonna go around and around. Now, if you're way back in September, this might remind you of our yarn apple. This is a great place to pass off to your kids, okay? So put it through, and then wind around and around and around until you completely cover. Now, at the end, the bottom where this, you're so real for this, thank you. At the bottom of this, it does have a tendency, if you're not careful, to just slip off. So kind of just hold this and just go all the way around. Use your fingers to keep it from popping off the bottom, okay? So we're gonna go around and around. And now you're not going to use all of this just for winding, because we need to make the little rails next. So you might be tempted to just wind it all the way, but we need some of this. So once this is just really nice and covered, I'd rather you leave more than you need for the end. So this looks nice to me, okay? So you see this, we have a nicely covered little basket. I'm holding the bottom here so that the twine doesn't slip off. Now, we are going to take this needle and we want to go back through, but we want to not use the top or the bottom because that's where we're going to be putting our next holes. So we just need to get this back on the inside of this. So I'm going to use this, and I'm just going to poke right in the middle, and it doesn't really matter where this is. It's just somewhere for the needle to go. So I'm poking right in the middle of this, and then I'm going to find that spot and poke this from the middle, from the outside to the inside, okay? And it takes a little, there we go. So, a reminder, this is going out here, and then we're just getting this needle back through to the inside of the little thing. And then we're gonna pull this nice and tight, okay? So, there we have, and you'll see how this is trying to fall off already. We'll fix that in a second. We have this there. So now we have our nicely wrapped little carton, and our thread and our needle are on the inside of our egg carton. Now we're gonna be starting to make the rails of the basket. And we're going to be making 6 rails. So the rest of the construction is going to be in 6s. We're gonna have 6 rails. We're gonna have 6 holes in our little our little light holder, and we're gonna have 6 things that go around these guys, around the whole balloon, all right? So then we're gonna come to the bottom of this little carton, and we're gonna use our little poker, don't poke your fingers, and we're gonna poke out a little space for the bottom. Okay, then from the inside to the outside through that little hole, we're going to go and make sure you're underneath all of this wrapped things. This is gonna be what's gonna start to hold this in place. So from the inside to the outside, okay? And then we're going to go from the outside to the inside straight up. So this is creating these rails that the other twine will be connecting, and this is how the basket will be connected to the balloon. So vertically right there, I'm gonna use my little puncher, and I'm gonna punch my little hole carefully, okay? And I'm gonna just punch it through, and it can be kind of tricky, so careful. Punch, 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 okay? And then right vertically there, we're gonna go from the front to the back and get it through, okay? And then pull it, and then you're gonna have a nice little rail. See that? And then that's already starting to hold all that twine in place. Now we're gonna repeat this 6 times, okay? So we're gonna go from back to the front and the bottom, rail number 2, right here, and then we're gonna come up vertically. Now, I have my other little hole here where I started, so I'm gonna make sure that it's not too close to that because I don't want them to poke all the way through. So let's find a little spot right there. Will work, okay? And then from the outside to the inside, poke this, and it can be tricky. So this is an adult part of your activity. And we're gonna make rail number 2. This wasn't completely vertical, that's okay. So rail number 2, and because this is live, there's gonna be no fast forward, so you get to see me do this whole thing. Actually, let me see if you actually do, because I have this one, so I might be able to just pass off, okay? So that is how we make the 6 rails. So we're gonna make 1, 2, 3, we're gonna make 6 evenly distributed vertical rails from the inside to the outside of the bottom, coming up to the top. And I think that's all. I don't think I need to actually go through each one of these. And then after that, you're just gonna tie a knot and tie this off so that it's secure, all right? Any questions on basket construction? And then I'm gonna go flip over here because this one is done. So I can show you here how this one has these 6 rails, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way around. It's nicely holding that twine in place and then just tied off, all right? Okay, I think we're good to skip ahead. So that is how you construct your basket, and you carry on and put that aside. You might still need your poker tool. All right, so then we're going to get to the balloon construction, okay? So the top, you're going to get a piece of wire, and this is shown in step 7. And this is a little piece of wire, and I'm gonna show you kind of what this is here, okay? So you're gonna use your little poker and poke the very top of your balloon. And then you see this little shape. You're essentially making a little eyelet here and having enough wire to hold up the balloon. Okay, so this is really just, it doesn't have to be exactly this length, but it's really just enough to hold up the balloon. And then what you're gonna do, and of course, if this is already mostly constructed, so you'd be doing this before any twine is on here, you're just poking it through so that it can hold up your balloon. You see that? So then this little piece of wire is holding it up, and you just thread it through, and that little L shape that you kind of put it in is holding this up. Now, you'll want a thick enough wire for this. I don't have the specific gauge of the wire. I do have another example of a slightly thinner wire. If you have slightly thinner wire, just double it up, and you can do the same thing, and it'll help strengthen it. So just want to make sure it's strong enough to hold this up, okay? Once that's set, you're gonna set it aside, and you're gonna make the base for your tea light, okay? So this is just a little piece. I use just watercolor paper or cardstock, about the size of your little thing here, so maybe 2 inches. And again, just 6 holes all the way around. So you can kind of see just 6 little hole punches all the way around. Your child can help you with this if you want. It's really nicely depicted in step 9. Then our next piece is we're going to make, guess how many? 6 little holes near the base of the balloon here, but not too close to the edge because we don't want it to rip out. So this is about 1 inch away from the bottom, and you're just gonna poke your 6 holes, and as you can see, this is where the twine is gonna go. So you're gonna poke your 6 holes around the base of your balloon. Now I should mention also, before you get to this point, you will need to pop the balloon. So once you have your finished paper mache, you'll pop the balloon and carefully peel the balloon out from the paper mache thing, and then it'll be nice and hard like this, all right? Okay, so we have our little hanger eyelet in there. We have our cardstock ready. Now, as you can see here, this is mostly constructed, and I am going to show you the last one, how to do the last one, and then that'll explain how it's all done, and then you can see how I finish it off, and then you can fill in the blanks, hopefully, to how it is all done. So, to make these connect, we're gonna get a long piece of twine, about like this, see? You're going to twist and tie the middle of that twine to your little eyelet here, and then each side is going to come down on either side of your balloon, okay? You see how that's working? So then I'm going to take my trusty little blunt end needle again, and I'm going to take one end, we're going to thread that back through, okay? And then from the outside of the balloon, through that little hole, we're gonna take this twine to the inside. Now this might take a little work to just pull this through. There we go. And so now we have this twine going through, do you see that? Right there at the bottom, on the outside, going through to the inside there. Then we're going to line up our cardstock. This is where we're gonna hold that little tea light, and we're gonna use this twine and go through one of those little punched holes. Now, of course, as you go, you'll need to make sure that everything is aligning with the strings on both sides, going to 2 opposite holes there, okay? So we're gonna go through that, and then we're going to tie this in place a bit so that it stays in place. So you're gonna do a little knot here. So I'm just gonna do a little knot here, okay? So we're gonna tie. So we go through from top to bottom of our cardstock from the outside, tie a little knot, and then this last piece is going to tie onto the rails that we just made from our basket. So see these little rails here? You can easily just get underneath one of those, and you probably don't even need your little needle anymore. And you're going to just use your fingernails and get this twine underneath this rail. And then you're going to tie these together, all right? Now, this is a little short because I had already constructed this and trimmed it, but hopefully you'll have a little extra tail so you can more easily make a knot, but I can still get that done. There, a nice little knot there, and then you see how that goes. So from the outside, through the hole, to the cardstock, to the rail. All right, so I'm gonna do that one more time just so you can see it on the other side, just to make sure we've all got it, and then I'll show you kind of the last little piece of the kind of finishing touches on this. Any questions I can answer kind of as I do this last piece. So a reminder, this is secured in the middle around the eyelet, and then we're gonna make sure that the one I just did goes all the way across. See how that is a straight line all the way across to the other side. We're gonna find that hole we made. We're gonna go from the outside to the inside and pull. And then we're going to get this all through. We're gonna pull that excess through there, and then find, for me, this is the last open little hole punch, but this would be directly across from the hole punch of the one you just did. Pull that through. And then we're going to make a little knot just to tie, kind of keep this cardstock in place. And then we're gonna go find that last remaining rail. Just tie that. We're gonna go find this last remaining rail to tie this in place and finish off our little hot air balloon, and then we're almost done, all right? So one thing to kind of like take a note of. As you're tying these, you do want to see, you'd want to try to make all of these as even as possible, because if you do one too short, then it kind of gets a little cattywampus, but it doesn't have to be perfect. So get that last rail and you're gonna just tie it off. Now, after this, let me show you, I have this. So you want to make sure that your cardstock is low enough to get your little tea light in. And then I have one fun last thing at the end. So here we are, we have your eyelet holding up these strings. The strings are going through the balloon, through the cardstock to our little egg carton basket. Then we're gonna take a little tea light and of course this isn't gonna turn on. Pretend I got a new one, but it's not turning on. So pretend this is turning on and we're gonna stick this carefully into here. And now let's see if this works. So one thing that Nathaniel kind of figured out is if you twist your balloon, it will raise the, cardstock right inside. Do you see that? Magic. So then that actually raises the light up into the hot air balloon. And if that light decided to turn on, it would really be glowing. So you twist the top and then it tightens all of those strings and it goes whoop, and then that light gets taken up into the balloon. And then of course you can stick a little gnome in here. And if you want to, you can tape the final twist if you want a little piece of tape. And then if you want to remove your light, you can untwist and pull it down to get it out and then twist again. It's kind of a cool construction how it pulls everything up. So twist it up and then you'll have your light all the way up in there glowing for your hot air balloon. You can tape the top to take that kind of twist in place. You can hang it as a night light, as a lantern. It is really fun. So again, a little bit of an involved craft, but certainly worth doing. And it sounds cumbersome, but once you get it, it is pretty simple. Just follow the holes around. And there you go. All right, hot air balloons for summer. How fun is that? It's such a sweet story to hear how Petty Pom wanted everyone to join him up in the sky and that they constructed this amazing hot air balloon. And in the story, it was constructed out of paper birch and pine resin. But here in our activity, of course, this is kite paper, and it's just so fun to see the kite paper, the colors of the kite paper. As I mentioned before, with traditional paper mache, you're using newsprint, and it's a very opaque, and then you paint. But how fun that we get to use this beautiful translucent colored paper to immediately have this color and have the light shine through.